Chief?
Yes, sir.
Where do you want to go?
All right.
Congratulations.
Congratulations,
Thanks,
Scott.
congratulations.
It was awesome. Thank you very much.
Start here.
Scott, welcome aboard.
Thanks so much, I really appreciate it.
Hope you have a great tour.
Thank you, thanks, I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Congrats,
Thank you,
welcome
sir.
aboard.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning.
Appreciate it.
Right here.
Have a good
Here we go.
night.
Congratulations.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for coming. You're welcome to stay, but I'm sure there's something else in your part. It's a good time to say goodnight.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Really appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Money helps.
Okay, we have 3 visitors in the audience tonight. If you look on the back side of the agenda, which hopefully you got, all there over by Eric, our engineer that tells how we handle visitors. If you would like to speak, basically, we ask you to stand, state your name, and you get 5 minutes to speak. After 3 minutes, I'll stick your fingers up to let you know that your time is almost coming to an end, and then I'll stop you after 5 minutes. Council may have comments, they may not. So, does any of the visitors wish to speak tonight to council?
Yeah, I'm Jack Silly, I live at 5231 Maple Springs. I'm just interested in what's going on Maple Springs resurfacing project, so maybe I'll listen to what you have. Am I supposed to state what my interest is at this point in time?
No, that was fine, though, Jack. Anything else, Jack? You got 4 minutes and some seconds left.
Not at all, not at this
Too many jokes.
point.
Okay.
Did I miss something?
All right, you know what, and I guess we'll stop, and, streets, do you want to say anything about Maple Springs? Not to give them false hope, but it's coming up later in the agenda, but
It is, one of the streets we will be recommending this year is Maple Springs.
Yeah.
For repaving.
Do you
So,
know what date?
no.
Way out there, I have to approve the vendor.
Correct, we've received a bid, so if council approves the bid, we'll move forward with that, and then scheduling is up to the
It's
contractor.
probably a couple of months out if I had to guess.
Okay.
If everything goes real smooth tonight, yeah, I would say a couple of months before start.
probably the one thing we want from anybody that lives on Maple Springs, if you think your culvert is bad, or have any idea that you need to replace it, get it done before we pave. And when I say get it done, it's very simple. I'll have the street commissioner explain how he handles this, as far as culvert replacement.
Thank you, Mayor. We will inspect all of the culvert pipes, and if they need replacing or they're close to needing replacing, we'll contact the resident.
Okay. So you will do that at your expense?
Yes.
Sam, we're talking about driveway culverts, right?
Driveway culverts.
And the way it's typically worked is the homeowner buys the culvert, the pipe, and the village puts it.
That's it?
And if you live on a road that we're paving that year,
Right.
we pay your driveway for it.
We paved the apron for the repair, not
Just the part we take out to put the pipe in.
Many of the homes have asphalt driveways. I have cement.
Okay, we
So,
do not,
what's
we do not
that?
cover concrete. Sorry. Now, if you want asphalt in there, we could do that.
No, I'm happy with what I got. So you're probably gonna add maybe 3 inches of height to the road or 2 inches?
Two, so we'll be cutting a joint across, milling so that we can come down and transition into each driveway very smoothly, so we don't leave anyone with a bump.
Okay, that's the intent.
The average price of a culvert pipe is what, $250?
The 12 inches, 250, 275. Between 2 and 300.
Yeah, basically,
Between 30 feet.
Yeah, I'm concerned with back.
Yeah, there was another issue, and maybe we got 2 more minutes here, but I guess when you did Shearbrook years ago, I think part of the bid specs and what was accepted or understood is that the berm, that maybe 9-inch to 1-inch berm outside where it meets the grass and the asphalt, it was to be crushed limestone. It's my understanding from some of my neighbors that it wasn't crushed limestone, it was maybe particulate, maybe it was part of what pulled up the old asphalt, ground it up, and it was put in there. Am I correct?
I think so.
Yeah. So, question is, are you gonna put crushed limestone in that berm?
No, the crushed limestone was an old spec, and we got away from that for several reasons. One of which is the limestone is a bright white line on new black roadway, and when we used to do that, a lot of the residents hated it. Another reason is that with the limestone, it's got a lot of dust, white dust in it, and when it rains, it washed the ditches and yards full of like a white, like almost a slurry material after the first couple of rains. So we moved away from the limestone and went to, it's a stabilized crushed and pulverized asphalt material. So it's not, we're just grinding it up and putting it back down. We're actually not grinding the roadway at all. We're gonna do a recycle and then pave over the top. So this will be,
No, I don't live on Sherbrooke, but I understand from some of my neighbors, they were less than happy with the product that you put in.
everyone is less than happy with the berm material, no matter what material is spec. What everyone would love to see is just put topsoil back in there and plant grass, and that's what we want. But that doesn't stabilize the edge of the roadway. We need something with structure to it that can hold and stabilize that 2-inch lift. So unfortunately, that's how it is.
So that's the product you're gonna put in.
Correct.
If you look at some of the roads we did a couple of years ago, they're already starting to green up the grass. So grass will grow in that asphalt berm.
Let's see.
any other questions or comments from any of our visitors?
So I'm Karen Malloy, I'm 5235 Maple Springs Drive. So, so I guess my question was, were you going to be able to have the 306 different from the Maple Springs, the timing? Yeah. Because if they're at the same time, I think, because people will probably be doing
Cutting through.
Right. I don't have a whole lot of control over ODOT. And I don't even think ODOT has a lot of control over ODOT. ODOT's gonna come in later this summer is all we know right now, to pave 306. If I had to guess at this point, if council chooses to award tonight and we notify the bidder, hold a pre-construction meeting, gather all the bonds and insurance documents needed to execute the contracts, we're probably 2 months out from an actual start date. So that puts us in July. So
and that hopefully maybe not at the same time as 306.
I'm hoping that it's not either.
Do
Yeah.
I have any control?
If I have control over us, so if 306 is starting, then I can either speed things up or slow things down by a week or two either way to make sure we're not, that's the last thing I want is a direct conflict with pavers coming in and out of a neighborhood and a main line. It's not in anyone's best interest, so I will do my best.
Okay.
Can you remind me, how we're gonna do the pipe, the culverts, it's only 2 days each, is that right?
Yes, coming across the culverts that we're replacing across 306, the 4 culverts. Yeah, we should plan on having 2 days apiece for those. And our contractor, you're getting from my engineer's report, the Grade Line Construction, the contractor that we awarded the Chillicothe culvert replacement project to, still is unsure of their exact start date because they're still gathering materials, and some of the materials that we spec are apparently hard to get. So they're saying we're 1 or 2 weeks out still from an actual start date. They'll call and give me the most up-to-date information they have as soon as they have an exact start date. I can disseminate that to streets and street would be streets. And actually be utilities because stormwater related, so.
So they keep like one side for 2 days and another side?
It'll be two days max to get all the way across. They're gonna be putting up, the red light, the temporary red light, green light on each side to keep one lane around at all times. It's imperative, as I stated during our last special council meeting, that we get those culverts in and backfilled and ready for ODOT to pave before ODOT paves. The last thing we wanna do is have ODOT come through and pave the road, and we follow behind it and cut it open and replace culverts. So coordination is key.
So, I guess, let's do a little summary. You'll have culverts on Maple Springs that need to be replaced. You'll have Maple Springs repaved. We're gonna have culverts probably in June on Chillicothe. Then probably in August, we'll have the road paved. And you also know that the chief is well aware of the people that try to cut through your neighborhood. And we will be ready for that situation.
Because we oftentimes see people run the stop sign that you put up on, in front of Jack's house, and, most people do pretty good. But there's still people that don't even slow down, they just like.
I think a couple of those live in your neighborhood and are refusing to stop, so we catch them and they're gonna be in trouble with us.
Well, yeah, so that would be
We've
great.
heard.
And then the culvert thing, you'll go around and inspect, just send us a letter if we need a new culvert, or call the mailbox, or,
If your phone number is with the building department, I'll call you, if not, I'll just leave a note on the door.
oh, okay. And does it say where the heck to buy a culvert?
It's everything.
Okay, so,
You know,
okay, so we buy it, get it, and then you guys put it in.
you go purchase it and we take care of everything else. We pick it up, you don't have to bring it home,
Oh,
you don't have to deliver it.
So those folks that had asphalt driveways, they'll repair.
The contractor will repair it.
Right, the asphalt, but if somebody had a cement driveway, right, and you have to put a culvert underneath it.
If it would be okay with you to have asphalt from the roadway to that cut, we could put asphalt.
Correct. I don't have an issue with that, I'm thinking about some of our other things.
To give you an idea, we have many culverts out here. I think you have on this year 34 culvert jobs already.
We have 6 on Chillicothe, we're starting tomorrow, and we have 5 or 6 others throughout the village, and Woodside and Maple Springs is gonna be put in.
And Jacqueline, our biggest paving time, we did like Shearbrook, Maple Hill, Daisy Lane. We did like 146 driveway aprons one summer. We only had one issue. Now Tom's was special because of the bricks, and we knew that, took care of that.
It's a special thing.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions or concerns from our visitors? Thank you for being here. Please feel free to stay. Please feel free to head on home if you have. All right, we're now at the mayor's report. First thing, we have a request for an August 6th homeowners association meeting. They'll have over 50 people. Anybody have any problem or any issues with that? Where at?
The pavilion.
Okay.
So it says Village
Hall. Who's looking at the number?
That's why I asked the question.
47, the other 3 sit outside.
So we could have a motion to approve the pavilion request for August the 6th. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Porter, second by Kavanaugh. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, okay. Yesterday or Saturday, I don't remember which, we had a party where they used a game truck. This is what the game truck looks like. They pull in, and this is the interior of it. Basically, it's a long bench seat with about 5 or 6 different consoles. So that's all there really is when they had a game truck. Okay, other things. The local mayors are traveling down to Columbus on Wednesday to meet with state reps, state senators, the lieutenant governor, the chair of the PUCO, the Supreme Court Judge Kennedy, and other state officials. This is something they're really making an effort to be seen by the local people and keep the pressure on the state legislators to not forget about us. The Ohio Municipal League is going to have more of those state officials there on June 20th, 22nd. They're having a convention. Ruth, I'm getting a little bit into your turf, but I'll go. If you could, please drive by 103 Pawpaw and 20 East Bell Meadow. These residents have solar lit flagpoles, and they're very happy with them. Also, now please be careful. Stop at the bottom of the hill sometime. That's the hill between Pawpaw and Bell Meadow, and just look at the water that flows from Lake Louise and Silver Creek into Pawpaw. I stopped there last Tuesday. Now that's kind of unfair because it was raining like crazy, but that opening is huge. Eric, 15 feet wide maybe?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't have it, I guess.
But it's
It's a substantial watershed, so yeah, there's a lot of water.
There's a lot of water, as Eric mentioned a couple of weeks ago, that water's coming from way down on Haskins Road too. But the amount of water that was flowing into Pawpaw was just amazing. And again, it had been raining for 3 days, but if you could, take a look at those 3 other locations, look at the 2 solar lights. The gentleman at 30 East Bell Meadow is the Mason.
20 or 30, Mayor.
Pardon me, 20 East Bell Meadow. He's the gentleman that has come to us about lighting a flagpole. We said, why can't you just light the flagpole with the solar light? That's what I have at my house. So we've tried it. It didn't really work, but take another look. This is before we make some changes. For the 3 visitors out there, what we're running into is the Masonic Temple wants to give us a flagpole. It cost us $100 a month to have a meter to light up the flagpole. So, and we wanted to put this one on East Washington, which we thought would look really neat. When it's dark, all of a sudden you've got this lighted flagpole at $100 a month. That's a lot. We pay $100 a month for the cemetery, the corner lot, and the pavilion now. So we got a lot of money in meters. Next, the NOPEC had their meeting to learn about rates. There were about 15 people in Bainbridge showed up. It was really just kind of question and answer about electricity. We've been talking with the local mayors about what we can do with Warwick Cemetery and also about the honor first responders. There'll be an event on May the 21st at 5 o'clock, and the Chagrin Valley will be honoring the first responders on Wednesday, May 21st at 5 o'clock at the Triangle. And we say there's 6 communities. That is Bentleyville, Chagrin Falls Township, Moreland Hills, Hunting Valley, and South Russell. Now, in case you're interested, at 6 o'clock at yours truly, they have a fundraising event. They have they put up their tall ladder, and they have what's called booths at the bar, and I think you can figure out what else they're looking for.
Mayor,
Yes.
who's the local committee that honors RPD?
It's a private committee.
Nice citizens that
Yeah,
got
the
together?
citizens, yeah.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes,
sorry, you've got May 21st is both a Sunday and a Wednesday. It's a Sunday.
Yep.
So what's
Thank
is
you.
the Wednesday the following?
no, it's gonna be on Wednesday, it's May 24th. Thanks, Chris.
Okay,
Thanks,
sorry.
Yeah, Mark, good.
Order.
We had a meeting with Congressman Joyce as communications director. We had a pre-conference, we had a post-conference afterward. Basically, we're just, we're not gonna have a meeting, buy the guy a lunch and say, we need money for stormwater. The suggestion was if we wanted to do anything, get a group. And basically, we're gonna have a meeting on June the 13th. We're gonna invite Aurora, Bainbridge, South Russell, and Chagrin to talk about what we can do is in a group to possibly come together. I think the more, the stronger we would be. the first meeting on June the 13th is just talk about what are you guys doing, what are they doing, are they doing something different? Also, thanks to Jenny Brown from your office, gave us some ideas, and frankly was very good at keeping our hopes at level. I mean, we were hoping, but we'll see what happens.
So Mayor, on June 13th, there would be somebody from Congressman Joyce's office here?
We were shooting for, he has somebody that deals with environmental in their office in Washington. So we're shooting at somebody. What we want to do with the 5 communities is find out what they're doing, see if they want to work together. We see how the ESID's coming, and this may be something else that we could do. It's going to be a more or less a sharing talk session, nothing formal. To let you know, we did a letter to support Chagrin Falls and their McFarland wastewater treatment plant. Congressman Joyce asked for people who were looking for money. He received 81 different requests for money. He will be able to pick 15 of those. So we also had a meeting with Cuyahoga County Representative Jack Schron on how to improve the Chagrin Valley Dispatch services. This one was pretty much a no-brainer. They're very happy. Things are going very well. It's just some things that we could do to maybe make it even a little bit better. And Cuyahoga County has a lot of, there's still a lot of money floating around. That's the proper term to say. The Inflation Reduction Act is out there, so we're just trying to cover every base. Farmers Market began last Saturday. Eagle Scout project was very impressive. 7 adults, 10 scouts are basically, they put whole posts in the ground. A couple of Tim's guys checked them out. Did we find any so far that were in bad shape?
Good.
What we did is we had them dig the holes, put it in, surround it with dirt. So if they made a mistake, we can just go jerk it right out. Bike to School is Wednesday morning at 7:30. Our first, ready for this, BZA meeting is not until this Wednesday. We haven't had a lot of issues. And for those of us that participated in Trash Day, a 59-year-old Hampton trustee township, he worked their trash day on Saturday and passed away on Sunday. On that pleasant note, questions of the mayor?
Not so much a question, Mayor, but a statement to your own point that you made earlier about the lighting of the flag. This is a road that we've gone down before. As a matter of fact, the village had 3 locations with solar lighting. They were in the cemetery, village hall, and the building department. And they were woefully inadequate. Not too long ago, and I believe maybe the fiscal officer still has some information on solar-powered lighting for flagpoles. If ones that are really expensive don't even provide, in this particular territory, in this neck of the woods, an adequate amount of power to light the flagpole for an entire night. While some of these systems may work nicely for somebody's home flag, for an industrial and or governmental type use, I think you're going to find it's inadequate. So just realize this is not unplowed ground. We've been through it before. It's not been particularly successful. And as a result, that drove us to illuminate with electric lights. Tim, I don't know if you guys kept some of those solar-powered lights that were purchased by your predecessor, but do you still have them in a box somewhere?
They're up on the pole, so we gotta take them down.
Okay, so in any event, if you wanted to see it, I guess you could shut off the electricity to the flagpole and see how great they are, rather than purchasing a new one, as I see on the agenda here. But, just food for thought for those of you who may have joined council recently and not been through this exercise in the past. That's all I have.
Okay. 2 other things dealing with the Blossom Time Parade. One of our 2 providers of Model Ts from the 1925 has moved to South Franklin Circle, and he sold his car.
Oh.
He kind of forgot about us. So you have somebody that has anything from the 1920s, that'd be wonderful. And the other thing is start thinking about what we're gonna wear. Are we gonna wear the same? We're gonna dress up, stuff like that. We'll have another meeting for that time comes. Any other questions of the mayor? We're at the fiscal officer.
I distributed my report to mayor and council. Are there any questions?
Any idea why the tax revenue was down
For this,
for the month?
I don't.
Compared to last year?
Well,
Well, April, a lot of times what they do is estimate it because that is income tax month. So then once they finish the collections, we'll get an adjustment in May.
so is the 2022 number, the 193, is that an adjusted number? From
Most likely,
2022?
I would have to go back and look.
Okay, but is the assumption that you make the adjustment and you change
Usually every year
numbers?
in April, no, I don't, what they do is they do an estimate based on our average collection, and then they make an adjustment in May.
Okay, and so in 3 of the previous 4 years, May was, I'll use the term supersized over April, so, okay, so we'll wait to see what happens.
Right.
Thank you.
And
Go ahead.
I'm working on my 5-year forecast numbers, so I was hoping to have it for you today, which I don't. So by the end of the week, I will email out all of council and department heads what we predict for the next 5 years, the big ticket items, and then if everybody could look that over and make sure that I've included everything, then I will go through and do the standard cost increases and then be able to provide that 5-year forecast and then be able to do the tax budget, which will be due in July, but our goal is always try to adopt it in June. And then the other thing, I just want to ask Mayor, for that meeting you're planning on June 13th with the other communities, is council involved in that? Is that a special council meeting?
You know, we were hoping to get one person from every community. It probably should be a special council meeting in case a couple people show up. It's gonna be very informal. We're just gonna talk about what we're doing and trying to pick each other's brains. So yeah, let's make it a special council meeting.
Okay.
What was the time on that again, Mayor?
It's gonna be June 13th at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Questions of the fiscal officer?
I just wanted to make a note that I was encouraged to read how the cross training is going really well between you and the building department. And more importantly, I was really excited to see the process documentation, because that's super important for the stability of the village and administrative roles.
You know, it worked well, and today, Ruth had to, last minute leave for like an hour, and we were able to send Leslie over there to cover the office, so it's working very well.
That's great.
Danielle, I know you have a good feel for what's going on. What are you getting from your colleagues about this income tax? Do they see steady, or they see?
Well, it depends where you're at. In my report, I reported from, I went to the Hot Topic seminar for the treasurers, and, Mayfield Village, they had a 60% drop in income tax revenue, but they had progressive, and those people aren't coming back, so how do they make up that money? We're lucky, we're a bedroom community. Our people are working, some people are working from home. If you looked at the report from CCA, it said where the money's coming in. So a lot of, people got raises, which means we get more income tax. So generally speaking, it has been an increase in collections, but we still watch it carefully.
Do you think the other foot may come down on us sometime in the next year or two?
We don't.
Right,
You don't know. We're just watching what the state does, because they snuck a lot of stuff in their budget relating to income taxes. But so far, it looks good. Okay, and our year so far is good, so.
All right, any other questions of our fiscal officer? We're at our finance committee.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next meeting will be Friday, May 19th at 9 a.m. We have before us in our packet the credit card report. So I'd like to make a motion to acknowledge receipt and acceptance of the credit card report as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Thank you. And in addition, at Trash Day, as usual, we had 2 employees from Russell Township who came over to assist us for the day, which was great, and we need to make a motion to approve paying them for working Trash Day. So moved.
Second,
Discussion.
they were really helpful. And the loader they brought, I think it was slightly larger than ours.
Ours is a 200, theirs is a 250.
Yeah.
Ours replaced theirs.
Really helpful for having it at both stations. Money well spent, I think.
And we didn't get the loader for free. They didn't charge us for that. They just charged us for the manpower.
Yeah, they didn't charge us for gas.
Wow.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And that concludes the report.
Wait, I have one thing.
Okay.
Finance is meeting this Friday, the 12th
12th?
at 2:30.
12.
Why did I,
You said the 19th at 9.
why, did I see it on the calendar differently? Okay,
You changed.
my
it.
apologies, okay. May 12th at 2:30,
Yes.
okay, sorry.
All right. No, any other questions of the finance committee? Solicitor, floor is yours.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Engineer, do you have any more?
I'll just rehash what I said earlier in the meeting. I'm looking for a recommendation from Streets Committee for the scope of this year's road program, eagerly awaiting that. And I still don't have an exact start date yet for the culvert replacement project on Chillicothe. I anticipate it'll be sometime in the next 2 weeks, but that's kind of a guess on my part, the contractor's part at this point. I will keep Streets Committee and Utilities Committee apprised of any hard date as soon as it comes through. And that's all I have, unless there are questions from council.
I have one question for you, Eric. At our last non-special council meeting that you weren't here for, because I know you do one a month, a question came up. I was approached by a resident, and he invited my attention to a situation in the proximity of 1417 Bell Road, okay?
Okay.
It's, an area that had a lot of new construction. There was a tear down of a house, a build
Yep.
house, and several outbuildings there. But he invited my attention, and I made the assumption that there was, it seems to be an extended parking area off the road, okay? And my assumption was that there was probably a culvert that went into that filled area that used to be a ditch, okay? But, on closer inspection, I saw that it was just completely filled in for a number of feet, significant. And, in looking at the rest of the properties on Bell Road, they appear to either have swales, ditches, and/or culverts, buried. So my question is why was this resident allowed to fill in the ditch when we have so many issues with water? And have we sent a precedent that everybody who's on a rise of a road can say, I don't need a ditch or a swale?
That's a little bit of a complicated question. I will answer the best I can. In that case, the streets commissioner brought it to my attention, and we determined that no water actually flowed across that property from east to west or from west to east because it was at a local crest and a high point. The ditch or the ditch/swale that was in front of that property was really just picking up water from that property and taking it to one side or the other. We have a small handful of culverts. We have a small handful of drive aprons in the village that don't have driveway culverts and don't need them because the same condition holds true. We have another small handful of conditions in the village where a drive apron is at a local high point, but there's a culvert under it anyhow, just because the builder put one under there. No water actually flows from one side of the driveway to the other, or vice versa. In that particular case, we determined that no water was actually going to come across that area from off-site to the other side, and there wasn't a need to put a driveway culvert there for that reason.
So on a case-by-case basis,
It is
we're
a
willing,
100% case-by-case
we're
basis.
willing to entertain requests from other members of the community that might believe that they're on a high point as well.
Correct. One such case just came to light recently. This evening before our council meeting, the streets commissioner and I looked at property that's on Circle Drive, correct? It's just about, if you're coming into the cul-de-sac, it's just around, 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock on Circle Drive. It's another crest where they're at a high point, the water goes around the cul-de-sac on both sides. Their drive culvert is failing. The resident wishes to replace that drive culvert. We informed the resident that, in this case, you don't have to have one. And they said, oh, great, but it would make us feel better if we had one, so we're gonna put it in anyhow. And that's fine. But it is, Councilman Galicki, it is on a 100% case-by-case basis. We look at them individually.
Okay, well, I appreciate the explanation, thanks. Ruth, I know when I brought this up last time, you had some questions based on the impact.
I'm digesting here because 1417, that's halfway down the hill from Bellwood. So water would come down. There is ditching there.
I'd have to look to see which way it flowed. I know we looked at
Well,
it.
it's gonna go downhill.
It is gonna go downhill, but there could be an inlet or a culvert crossing before that point where it takes it to the south
I
side
think there is.
of Bell Road.
I think you said there
There's
was.
an inlet that takes it to the north.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
And then
did.
there's
I
a,
questioned Tim about it.
there is another hill. It goes back up to Mill Cullen and it goes back down again.
Okay,
so even in cases where the culvert-less driveway may not be at the absolute crest of the hill, if the water flow is being directed in a different direction, then it could be treated the same.
the only other part was they're allowed to put the, I guess gravel or whatever they have, particulate and then gravel like that, all the way to the road edge?
That's something I don't have a lot of input into.
Do we? We must.
I mean, that would be I think a zoning question,
It's in the right of way.
It is definitely in the right of way. Yeah.
It's a zoning question.
Is it the driveway that's 100% gravel?
It's not only the driveway,
It's extra places
it's
for people to
extended,
park.
Oh, that's
I would
So here's the
say,
driveway.
rough order of magnitude, 30, 50 feet,
Maybe more.
maybe more.
It's pretty big.
But it's a significant fill. And I know for a fact, and I think Chris Bell, we put campaign signs there during our last campaign. There was a ditch there that, collected water, and I was just surprised to find a closer look that now it's all filled in, so. And, I didn't know that other residents had similar circumstances, but, the extent of what was filled in is pretty significant. It's not just a
It's
drop.
large. Yep, on this one, I agree with Dennis.
Other things, Eric.
That's the end of the meeting, let's go.
Make sure that gets in the minute.
Anything else, engineer?
No,
Questions of our engineer?
There was so much discussion at the Chagrin Lake special meeting about the lantern and what we could do, and was there adequate drainage, et cetera, ponding over there. Does Eric need to look into this again? I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm asking.
As far as,
There seem to be real opinions from Chagrin Lakes. That doesn't mean they're expert or correct, but just that coming from the lantern, they felt that there was a big impact from Family Life Center and a big impact of Bainbridge and a big impact from Lantern, South Russell, coming across. The neighbors said they saw changes. And that's not that that's the only issue.
right,
Do we go back and ask the Lantern to do more?
we can always ask. the Lantern to do more. The volume of stormwater retention that the Lantern provided was a function of their developed area, their impervious
The
area
impervious, and I
respective
did
to the
note
site.
that you said.
And it matches our code, it actually exceeds it by a little bit. So it's not like the Lantern was allowed to be developed and we, waived stormwater requirements or said, oh, you don't have to worry. They followed our rules, as far as providing the required cubic feet or gallons of water to be stored and slowly released, after a rain event, based on the development that they constructed. If they want to build more in the future or pave more in the future, then they'll be required to revisit that and add capacity for that additional runoff. What the Lantern is not required to provide stormwater retention for is any water that was previously running across their property from east to west toward Chillicothe Road. The retention that the Lantern built in is only for how they developed the site over and above what was already running across the site. We can't, and to date, do not require developers to take their site down to zero from start. They start at the natural baseline, and then we make sure that the finished product is at or below the baseline from which they started. I think that really is more of the issue of what's affecting the folks on Shearbrook and Chagrin Lakes, is the water that's coming around the Lantern and not even making it into the retention areas, because it's coming from off-site. I think it would be helpful to look at the retention capabilities of the Family Life Center combined with the retention capabilities of at least the south pond of the Lantern development, and maybe see if there's room for improvement either at one, the other, or both, to provide more stormwater retention over there. I think that's absolutely a wise thing to look into, and I can.
So then you would wait for direction from us before you
Correct.
pursue that?
Correct. I tend not to spend the village's money just because I have a hunch or want to do
No,
something.
I'm just clarifying. So council, we're gonna wanna talk about that and pursue it, maybe.
Any other questions or comments to our engineer? Last night, I got a really nice thank you from a Shearbrook resident thanking us for our efforts to protect their property and the fact that the new culvert's going in and there's gonna be some device in the culvert. And I had to crush them to say, what we did, what we're going to do, has no effect on their personal property. If you live downhill in Shearbrook, if you have Wembley behind you, their water is going to come to you. Now, maybe 50 years ago, those houses had swales or something around the house. But all throughout the village, people are facing the issue that the water does not flow like it used to. As swales start to fill up, the water flows sideways. So those people that are living down the hill in Shearbrook, the Wembley behind it, nothing we did is going to change the amount of water that they're dealing with. I mean, in my backyard, I'm building little mounds to protect me from my neighbor. So the water that we're taking care of is going across Shearbrook, just like it does now, to that first pond, and then down ponds 2, 3, and 4. That water is going to be between Parkland and Shearbrook. It will have no effect on the people living on Shearbrook. So that, you hit it on the head. We'll be looking at this, and I think some people are realizing, there's not going to be a change in their personal situation. On that sad note, street commissioner, let's do something fun. Tim, I got 2 pictures up here that you provided to me. Van Kuren we patiently waited. Do you want to talk about these two? I got this one and then I got this one.
We had no other way of getting to the top of the pole. The pole doesn't break down, and this was, we tried to get a bucket truck out there, it wouldn't reach, it was too tall, the flagpole was too tall. And they said, well, someday, when we're going by, when we're leaving early one day, we'll stop by and take care. I just hope for the best, and they did, they showed up and they did, put the pulley on the top of the pole.
Who is that?
That's one of they're the people, not us.
It's not you, Tim? Yeah.
Oh. Okay. And these characters, and somehow, I don't know, Mark, we even got a video of you guys.
Oh, boy.
That was a good day.
Yeah, this is good.
Oh, that's good.
Okay. Street Commissioner, we're back to you on serious stuff.
That's my weather report for April. Along the line of trash day, we had 7 trash dumpsters, and I believe that's an all-time low. So maybe we are finally getting hold of the trash. That's all I have.
Questions of the Street Commissioner?
One comment, on behalf of the senior citizens of South Russell Village, I just wanted to thank all your guys for their efforts. Seniors who registered to have their stuff picked up at home. So that was a great service that you provided to them, so thanks a lot.
Thank you. We had 110 senior pickups.
Got 2 of them sitting here, so.
Great.
And you were welcome.
Okay. Committee.
Okay, just think about how long I have to go before that trash pickup comes to my house.
23 years.
Okay, first and foremost, I want to talk about the Salt Dome project. That's the last bullet on the agenda, but I want to go with that first. In our last meeting, we talked about this project, and the engineer is going to commence with the initial background work. After speaking to our committee, it appears that likely that project will be in 2024 because of the timing. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Eric, at all.
You know, I'm already on it, so since our last streets committee meeting, I've already got the project moved forward. I'm trying to wrangle a project manager and the design team that can take it and run with it, so.
So I think some questions for the committee are going to be if we have mild winter again, to begin with, what are we going to do with the rest of the salt? We might have to contact and come to some agreements with nearby communities for storage maybe.
Well, the school will certainly take some of it,
Yeah.
but not as much as they used to. But we're getting 1,000 tons, I think, next year. It's about 700 less than we normally get.
Right.
So presumably, with another mild winter, we'll still be near full, but not over full.
We were contacted by Russell Township. They needed to store 50 tons that we were going to try and make room for, but they were able to get it.
Okay. That's something we should keep in our back of our mind as the winter starts. Maybe it'll be really snowy. I got a snowblower, it didn't snow all year. Let's see here. The road program for 2023. The bids were opened on April 24th, was it? I believe.
Yes, that's right.
One bid was received. It's my understanding that a lot of companies did not bid because of the structure of it. We just had a base bid and then alternates of other roads. So we received one from Specialized Construction. The overall of the base bid plus the 2 alternate streets ends up being approximately $82,000 less than the engineer's original estimate. The base bid was for the base repairs throughout the village. That was quoted at $51,000. Woodside Road, alternate A, I believe, was quoted at $189,274. And Maple Springs was quoted at $251,994. Because of, the mayor reminded us also, and additionally, that we do have a road levy that was voted in a few years ago, renewed a few years ago, brings about $235,000 from the taxpayers. That in conjunction with the pushing back the Salt Dome a little bit, we felt it was okay to move forward with a bigger road program than we initially thought, meaning not just the base bids. We'd like to recommend to council the base repairs, Woodside and Maple Springs. That would bring a total of $492,268 for the 2023 road program. if approved by council.
I'd like to make that motion that the mayor, fiscal officer, solicitor, engineer, and street commissioner are all authorized to enter into the agreement with Specialized Construction for purposes of base bid plus alternates A and B, in the amount of approximately $492,000 for the 2023 road program. So moved.
Moved by Porter, seconded by Bell. Discussion.
Question, although the salt dome has been moved to 2024, there are still going to be a number of costs in planning, engineering, those type of costs in 2023. My question is that given the latest proposal on the streets that we're going to address, along with the, and it seems like we're taking on those 2 additional streets because of the deferment of the salt dome, okay? Given the costs that might be anticipated for the preliminary work for the salt dome, are we within the budgeted amount?
Let me clarify my statement. We're not moving forward because of the movement of the salt dome. It made me feel a lot better.
Okay. But realize that without those additional funds, the proposal was for the base repairs.
That's correct.
So it would appear like because of the deferment of the salt dome, now we have some funds available to address those streets. But as I recall in previous discussions of council, you know, we were concerned because there wasn't any money left in the piggy bank because of issues like property obtaining, purchasing, you know, as well as salt dome and other things that we had tabled up. So there just wasn't enough money in the piggy bank to pay for the 2 additional streets. So I'm assuming that that provided us a little bit of flexibility by the cancellation. I'm just wondering, with the total expected costs for salt dome planning and with the street proposal, are we still within our budgeted amount?
For the roads program? Let's go.
And maybe that's for the finance officer, so.
I would say that we budgeted $850,000 for roads this year. And
But
Well, that was what was
450,000 not
discussed.
to,
It's not in the budget currently.
It's not in the budget currently,
Right.
but we are below $500,000 for the road program as proposed 2023. So I think we have sufficient funds for the engineering for the salt dome, so we can lay the groundwork.
The engineering for the salt dome is probably gonna run about $50,000 this year.
well, just be advised that some of that 800K that we originally discussed for the Pie in the Sky Street program has gone to other issues, correct?
It has.
So-
I would also note that East Washington Street, the village's portion of it, may wind up being part of the county bid in the sense that we would join in with the county for that purpose. And it's about $150,000. We have made no commitments.
Well,
I think it's
have-
already in the bid, it was
It's
already,
already,
But the county hasn't gotten their bids yet.
yes, they have.
I thought they had,
Mhm.
Yes.
we're included in that.
We're in.
So it's the 160?
I can't remember the.
It was 150 something. I guess.
154,281.
Okay, thank you.
So then we have-
He's on.
They asked us to estimate 10% for overages, but maybe likely not, and we will receive $121,000 in MRF funds from the county for this project. So that brings about max 48,709.
The 2023 road program goes beyond the base A and B alternates. It also includes East Washington.
Our local share, correct?
And our local share is about 50. So we're getting 3 streets done, base repairs for about $550,000.
You know, just as a member of finance, I just want us to be mindful. And, you know, it's not a sailor's payday with the people's money, so.
No,
Sailor's
absolutely.
payday.
Any, wait a minute, no, we've been moved and seconded.
Well, can I, go ahead. I do have discussion after you
Okay, we're
sum
gonna
up,
get this motion.
but before we vote.
Oh, okay, I was gonna
If possible.
vote. Okay, go ahead.
So, I apologize, I think your motion didn't say to authorize the contracts, I think what we're doing tonight is approving the bid. We have you did say bid, I thought it actually had contract in it.
That's
The
the
reason-
contract.
You said contract.
I'll go with this.
Only because, kind of like what we did with grade line, if that's okay, it's to approve the bid, then the next council, we approve the contract.
That's fine.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to
Accept
award the 2023 road program. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Still your, this,
We met on Friday the 5th, failed to mention that earlier, minutes are forthcoming. Our next meeting is Friday, June the 2nd. And let me just check my sheet here. I think that is all I have for today. Oh, I do have one more thing.
Yeah, we gotta approve the food.
If from trash day, okay. My apologies. I'd like to make a motion to ratify the purchase of food for the 2023 trash day event in the amount of,
40 small.
Tim purchased it, my total.
was it less than 50?
I know what it was last
It
year.
wasn't full.
it's a lot more. How much, Tim?
I'll have it off the top of my
A
head.
couple hundred?
It's less than 500.
Less than 5.
Okay.
Make a motion to ratify the purchase of food for the 2023 trash day event not to exceed $500.
Second.
Discussion. All in-
Discussion, I have a question. Is this an after the fact? You're asking for permission after it's already been purchased, correct?
Well, we realized this year that we do have legislation for what we're allowed to purchase food for, and trash day is not listed on that legislation, so that will have to either be amended, so we don't have to do this going forward, or make a motion ahead of time.
So this expenditure does not fall into our existing guidelines at this time.
Correct.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
Aye. Or nay.
Okay, vote is 5-1, the motion passes.
And the reason I say nay is because it's after the fact and not in accordance with our existing instructions.
Anything else, street committee?
Fair enough.
That's it. Eric, Plainview is Sunday. It certainly looks like Fargo got the bid to do East Washington. So that's not usually, we don't like that. All right, we have the building committee. Chris, you're up again.
Okay, building committee. As we've talked about a few times, you may have seen our minutes in the past, we've discussed the planning commission alternates. After discussion and going over a few drafted changes to the ordinance, we felt it was good to move forward with suggesting to the council to change the current structure from one alternate to allowing the current or future mayor to be able to have up to 3 alternates with only 2 serving at one meeting at one time. We felt that this will help the committee be able to move forward, not have to cancel meetings due to committee members' personal schedules, and so the business of the village can move forward more effectively. So we'll be discussing that later during the ordinance section. Jerry, do you have anything to add?
No, sir.
Questions of the building committee? Chief, you're up.
Thank you. They submitted a month-end report, just got a few notes to pass on. This Wednesday, we do the Bike to School event from Cleveland Clinic to the intermediate school. Our 3rd grade seatbelt program will be May 22nd. And next month, Cops and Kids Fishing, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Our bike rodeo is June 25th, 10 a.m. to noon. And just want to mention, Patrolmen's that they obtained a grant and received 72 bike helmets for the event.
Wow.
That's all I got.
Wow.
Questions of our police chief? Chief, the presentation in April, forgot about scams. Very well done, especially when you said that it's just not the older people that get scammed. That really hit a lot of discussion after the whole event.
It was a good program.
I never told the guys nice job, so.
I will let them know. Thank you.
Questions of the chief? We're none, we are at the safety committee.
Thank you, Mayor. Safety Committee met morning of May 4th at 9 o'clock. Minutes can be found in your packet. Are there any questions? Councilman Galecki, anything?
Nothing to add.
That's all right.
All right, we are at the HR committee.
HR met on May 4th at 1 o'clock, Mr. Berger and myself. The minutes were submitted last week and were in your packet. any other questions regarding this? I'm sure everybody had a chance to read over. And Chris Berger, do you have anything you want to go into detail about?
Yes, thank you. So one of the discussions that was had at the Human Resource Committee regarded the application of comp time for non-exempt employees. And I want to bring to council's attention that we have a comp policy for employees to bank comp time versus overtime for part of the village. And we have two employees, the administrative assistant and the building assistant, who are not eligible for comp time by the way their jobs were set up. And so HR will have a continuing discussion about this, but to be aware that at some point HR will bring this issue to council to, I think, to resolve it so that we treat all of the employees the same way who are in the same classification. So with that, that's all I have to report.
And I should say thank you to the chief. He's taking the work of making sure that we get an AED. We have to replace this one over here. We can't get parts for it, which sounds like a ridiculous sentence to me. We can't get the pads. They don't make them anymore.
They make them, but they're on significant back order. We haven't had a delivery since January.
So we'd be doing 1960s compressions without that. And there is no AED in the Village Hall or Streets building, so we're gonna get one for over there.
Village Hall,
I'm sorry, I meant building and streets.
The only question I have is, I've got the pricing, where do you want that to come out of the budget? Do we have a special line?
Well, they're gonna be doing some amendments at the next meeting based on the Salt Dome and the road program, so we can put it in for amendments at the next meeting.
Thanks, Chief.
Any questions of the HR committee? Ruth, we're at the property committee.
Okay, this is going too fast. Properties Committee also met on May 4th at 10 a.m. Jerry Canton and myself, and I submitted those minutes. I hope everybody read them. I'm glad that the mayor followed up on Nathan Hill, and I'm excited to think that we're gonna have those trail signs down at the park. Going to be great. Tim has worked very hard with both of the, and continues to work with both of the Eagle Scout, what do you call them, candidates. And let's see, what else do I want to talk about? I will kind of be glad when the Blossom Time Parade is over. It's making me stress. But we're only 100 one time in my life, so going forward with that. There will be a park meeting, not just properties, but the park meeting on May 16th here at the hall at 7 p.m. Anybody that wishes to attend another meeting is more than welcome. And I can talk about it now or with new other. I'm pursuing shirts. And very belatedly in your email, I sent you a picture of what we're going to have. And the department heads will read this. We had discussion at HR between the mayor, Jerry, and myself, and this is what we came up with. We can supply shirts to employees, but council has to purchase their own. We are not employees. And we've got it down to a logo that includes the picture of the old building with the color would be in the stained glass. It's very basic. And so your department heads will talk to your people, see if they want polos or t-shirts. I actually like the t-shirts better. And they're gonna end up being blue. We're two colored, just to keep costs down. And that's all I've got right now.
If I may make a point, concerning the purchase of solar light kit.
Yep.
It might be prudent if we would compare the quality and the power of a new, up-to-date solar light kit with the old, to see if there's any relationship at all.
So how would we do that without buying one?
I think the fiscal officer has information about the current solar light kits for flagpoles. I know that this
Well, I don't know
discussion,
what we currently have on the poles,
No,
but
no,
I
I'm
did
saying about
research for what.
when we were just a couple of months ago
Right,
looking
when
at
we
this
were-
issue, we have all that information, so.
So I can forward it to the properties committee if you
Sure.
want.
I would still like you to drive by the two addresses that the mayor brought up. I just think we're ridiculous. This is where somebody said we move at the speed of erosion. These nice gentlemen at the Masonic Lodge want to donate this. And do we pay $1,200 a year to light it?
Well, but that's a great question there, Ruth, because, you know, are we creeping down being penny wise and pound foolish? Somebody's offered us a flagpole. So we want to grab onto that and say, yes, let's do the flagpole. And we're hoping to accept that on the hope that the solar light power will illuminate it properly. We have seen from our own experience in the village that solar light does not illuminate properly. So then, is that then going to justify, well, now we have to put in proper light, and now it's going to cost us X amount of dollars per month? So are we just looking at a different avenue to accept a kind donation that will end up costing us the same amount of money in a few months? So you raise a good question, and the question might be, is this the best donation that we should accept, or are there other projects that are begging for people to donate money to, whether it be benches, park support, or whatever? But I just don't want to rush into this and find out
We're not rushing.
something's inadequate. Well, in purchasing the kit, I mean, how are we going to know unless we put it on a flagpole here?
All right, so we don't need to vote on a kit tonight. Is there something I can look at, Danielle, that's
No, I'll forward it
modern?
to you tomorrow.
It-
What?
Do we have something here, or it's just?
No, it was just stuff I found online. I was asked to look up flagpole lighting, and I found some things. But that's all I have. I don't know what we have on our poles.
No, those were purchased by Daryl. But
Yeah,
maybe you guys have something in the files. that-
And-
These are 300 watt LEDs, what we have on these.
the Masons, the mayor has gone back and forth with them, as have I. They're very firm that they don't want benches, they want a flagpole, and they want it on Washington Street.
I just point out that you may be incurring costs to accept their kind of gift. That's all.
I understand that.
Anything else on the property? Go ahead.
Because we have a flagpole, doesn't mean necessarily you have to put the US flag on it.
Oh, I think it does.
Are they insistent upon that?
They need a US flag, yeah.
So it couldn't be the flag of Ohio or South Russell or somebody else.
But even if it was a flag of Ohio, and the information I provided to council a while back, you know, Ohio Revised Code requires lighting of the Ohio flag, or that it only be displayed under daylight conditions. So, you know, those two flags, maybe if we had a South Russell flag, you know, a police force flag or whatever, you know, that might not require the 24/7 lighting, but unfortunately, with either of the two, US or state flags, we're bound to light it properly.
Given my respect for these Mason gentlemen over the years, and my father and grandfather were members of that lodge, we're gonna get something that everybody's gonna be more or less happy with, and we're gonna see it through. Just
Okay.
not tonight.
Just to summarize, they came to us probably a year ago, offering $5,000. We talked about putting a flagpole on East Washington. We've seen the cost of lighting it, $100 a month. We've talked to Amish about talked to a solar provider from out in Joliet County, an Amish company. We talked, Mark will get to it, we talked to Yellow Light Solar Friday morning. So we've looked hard at this. Please look at 103 Pawpaw and 20 East Bell Meadow. And if those are adequate, we could run with them. If they're not, then we don't. I think the Masons are willing to be flexible They want a flagpole, they want to dedicate it for one of their members, and they'd like a bench too. And I think we'll work this out
We'll work it out.
before the glaciers come back. All right, I'm gonna jump here before we do more with the, oh, I'm sorry, did you have anything on the property committee? Were you done?
Well, she mentioned the fact that we're going to have a meeting
Park meeting.
at 7 PM on this
On Tuesday, March 6th,
On
May
the 6th.
May 16th.
May
God, I'm so-
16th, and we'll be discussing the festival date, the fall festival date, and a rain date, and
And the
we're going
bronze
to begin-
schedule will be there.
they'll be out, and we'll begin planning for the festival.
Any other questions of the
Thanks,
Park
Jerry.
and Property Committee? Hearing none, I'm gonna jump in here on your shirt tail, Ruth. The spots that you see above the Chiefs Eagle Scout project, those are the holes that the kids dug on Saturday. And again, Tim's guys have already checked them out, and they're happy checking them out. But we didn't want a pole sticking out that's gonna hurt somebody, and we didn't want to have to be weed whacking around it every week. So we got these spots, and again, we put them in the ground with dirt, and if they're wrong, you can just pull them right out of the ground. Second thing, these are the invaders, and I put their name off to the side, the barn swallows.
Barn swallows.
That come in, and they're doing fine in the pavilion already. And they are on top of one of the new bluebird houses. This lady, Pam Route, she, her pay job, she works for Heinens. She's been maintaining the bluebird houses for the past year. She works with Pete McDonald. She's a volunteer and has been working to maintain and keep them going. This just became her love. We met with her maybe a month or two ago with Matt Valensik also, who's in the Audubon Society. This is what a bluebird house looks like. Now, these have been built by our street committee, street crew. We obviously didn't plow a lot of snow this year, so they were able to redo these. After 7 years, the other ones were shot, and this is a very nice version. The plastic pole that you see underneath, Pam bought those. They're designed to keep predators out.
Oh,
Here's
so they can't climb up there?
Yes, so they can't climb up.
That's great.
The still issue is the other birds.
So can the barn swallows get in there?
See, part of that, I don't remember.
Vice Lord's don't feel that kind of nest.
They want to be up in the
Sparrows.
rafters. Can't they all?
She frankly goes in and cleans them out sometimes if somebody else is in there. But here is success. Our street crew build these with a slot so that you can stick your phone in and take a picture. You're looking down into one of the new bluebird houses. And here's a close-up. Somebody showed me.
They checked today.
Yeah.
She checked them today, and they were excellent inside.
Okay. All right, we're now at public utilities.
Thank you, Mayor. Public Utilities Committee met on Friday, May 5th. Meeting notes will be coming. To add more confusion to the solar lighting issue, I just want to raise another possibility that you're aware that, and I'll let Mark speak to the majority of the meeting, but during our meeting on Friday, we did meet with a gentleman from a solar power company talking about the possibility of installing a solar array for the village. But he did mention in his report that there is proposed legislation before the state of Ohio to allow multiple location entities to net out their electricity use. That is, if you have a meter in a second location and you have solar arrays at the first location and you're generating so much power that more than what you use at the first location, that then that credit could be netted against other locations that have meters. That's not law now, it's a proposal. But if that were the case, that would eliminate the concern for solar power for these flagpoles, because we would be able to net our use from our main campus against the meters at both the park and the cemetery. And if we wanted to put another meter on East Washington, I'm sure we would be able to do that. But so that's a third possibility, I guess, as to what we might do. And again, that legislation is pending. So I'll let you speak to the solar array issues.
Several friends from Yellow Light came and spoke to us at the committee's invitation. Yellow Light is one of a number of contractors in Northeast Ohio that does solar panels. He reported that typically the solar panel installation we're talking about is approximately $200,000 at the top end.
And it would look like what?
It would look, if you've gone by Progressive, they
Not
have
like
that, they have that field,
Okay.
and they have the arrays. They look like, shells tilted toward the sun, much smaller in our case, but that's the idea.
Okay, so like how many of those, I guess, would be my question.
He wasn't able to give us a number, you need to look at the location first, and we wanted to see our electric bills as well, which we provided. Danielle, thank you again for responding to that short notice request. And the mayor, street commissioner, and he were gonna walk the property. I think you guys did that, right?
I did.
Not yet. Well, eventually, we'll walk the property for the best site for the solar array. But he also says that the federal government currently provides 30% credit. It might go up to 40% if you buy US-made solar panels. So you buy, and there's an outfit in Toledo that makes them. And they are really, really busy now, ever since that extra 10% was brought up. So the upshot is that an array for the village could cost about $120,000. And it would pay back over 8 to 9 years, possibly less, depending on the credit front, the extra 10% if you buy US.
So is that made in the US or just purchased in the US?
No, made in the US.
Okay.
But he said most of the solar panels these days are made in Vietnam, Cambodia, places like that. Surprisingly, China's not the player it used to be, for probably many reasons, but that's one of them. So, with an 8 to 9 year payback period, possibly less, there is virtually no maintenance with them. You don't even have to brush them off when there's snow on them, apparently. They don't offer any kind of training for maintenance, which kind of surprised me, but there are no moving parts. It's really a question of putting them up and cost to install. So the 3 locations mentioned are the central retention basin. You can put them up on pylons that are taller so that they don't get immersed in water. That's one option. Second option is like up on the slope above the central retention basin, or the ever popular behind the police station. So these are all possibles, and it is, at least the committee's view, correct me if I'm wrong, is something that might be worthwhile exploring if the village council is so inclined to direct public utilities to continue.
By chance, did he speak of the lifespan of a solar panel, how long it is?
About, he said that 30 years was a reasonable lifespan. Now they degrade in efficiency over time. He suggested about 0.5% a year was reasonable. But still, and this I think is critical to our discussion, you can't have a solar array that exceeds your current electrical use, okay? That is, you can't be a net solar generator to the system, okay? And I think Mark made the comment well at the committee meeting that the energy companies have great lobbyists. So you can't compete against the energy company for more than what you actually use, okay? So it's not like we could go and put in 500 solar panels and generate millions of dollars
And then sell.
and sell it back that won't work. So what most of these solar panel arrays do is they're designed to generate between 80, 85%, maybe as much as 90% of your annual usage. That's all you're gonna be able to do, okay?
I'm surprised that the cost is only 120,000.
That's the net.
Than that, after you get the credit from the government.
Okay.
But he also said there are solar panels at NASA Glen that were built in the late 60s, early 70s that are running at about 85% capacity.
And
And
then-
that's 50, 60 years later.
In 30 years, Jerry and I are gonna be 100.
Celebrating our
We're gonna put a solar panel in the cemetery?
Great.
Well, and that's the other comment to make, because one of the location suggestions was
And you too.
where the rental property was across the street. And you are not permitted by law to run the power lines under a street from the solar array to our central
And that
location.
makes sense.
So it has to be on our campus or adjacent to, which is the central retention basin.
A potential project for way down the road. An array on that side with a battery system to power the light at the flagpole at the cemetery and at the pavilion, because that property backs up all the way down to the railroad. But one solar array at a time.
Thank you.
Did he mention anything about disposal of those panels? I know it's 30 years down the road, but
That did not come up, but it would not surprise me that they are considered hazardous material. It's not like we're gonna take them on trash day.
No, I actually have some experience with this. There are recyclers that will take the solar panels and disassemble them. And so the glass goes to one area, the precious metals go into a recycling program. And there is a major recycler, happens to be in Toledo. So,
it's good to be.
yeah, so, but, so that's the way you dispose of them at the end.
So council is interested in further investigation.
I'm very interested.
So we'll keep exploring.
Yes, Dennis, what do you think?
You know, let's get more information. It's worthwhile looking into.
I mean, ultimately, if we were to decide to go forward with this, we would bid the job out. It's not like we're gonna give it to anybody, but, bid the job out, see who responds, and, what they respond with.
Yeah.
One of the things we really don't know is how big the array is gonna be.
Right.
And that may be a consideration, you know, just in terms of sightliness, because we may find out that you need a significant solar array farm just to produce the energy that we're talking about. So, you know, continue the investigative process and we'll find out what
It would end up down.
what it's gonna look like, you know, so.
Mark,
Yes.
besides the 40% Uncle Sam will pay, is there any opportunities for other grant monies?
Well, there's the NOPEC grant that we get every year that is, designed for, it's like 15 grand, it's for energy efficiency, stuff like that. So, I mean, our goal would be to reduce the net cost to the village as close to zero as we possibly could. But over time, if the payback period is, let's say, 9 years, and they're good for 30 years at least, and that's the warranty period, by the way, it's 30 years. You know, for 20 years, our electric bill goes. And we're not as.
That police vehicles will be EVs at some point, that service vehicles, they are now starting to produce that are EVs, and we will need charging stations, et cetera. The array can be modular in that we can set up the initial array, and as our power usage increases because of charging EVs, we can add to the array with minimal expense. Just add more panels. So that's But that's where we're headed. So we'll keep investigating, we'll get better numbers, and we'll be back to you.
So the next step is for mayor and the street commissioner to walk the property, figure out which is the best place to put it, and then we get some kind of indication from the supplier, potential supplier, about what an array would look like, how many panels, how big is it, where does it go?
Well, and I would suggest maybe the first step would be talk to the contractor to find out what the anticipated size is of the array that's required before you walk the property. Because without knowing the size, you could pick a location like behind the police department, but find out, geez, it's not adequate.
Well, he's gonna walk it with us.
It doesn't matter. We don't know
He's got his, our electric bills, he knows how many he's gonna get calculated.
the heat. Okay, as long as he has that information, which he did not appear to have in your earlier statement.
He did, I think Danielle for it, in fact. But he's got the mathematical calculation, and the central retention may be too big, that one may, who knows? Anyway, that's the next step, and then we'll have another public utilities committee meeting first.
I have June 2nd at 9 a.m., I believe is the correct date.
We're hoping to get the information before the next meeting,
Mhm.
so that we can move along with this, and maybe move forward.
At what time, 9 a.m.?
9 a.m. The other major discussion was on Pawpaw Lake, follow-up to the special council meeting and considerations for helping them with their silt pond issues. And I'll let Mark take the lead here.
Sure. Fundamentally, what we'd like to do is have the engineer figure out the size of the parcel that the village would own for the purposes of maintaining the Pawpaw Lake facility pond. And then it occurred to me it might be useful, once we have that drawing in hand, to get a commitment from Pawpaw that they're willing to sell it. I don't see much point in having a split of the property, going through planning commission, doing all the legal work necessary to make this happen. If Pawpaw is not interested in selling that parcel to the village. I don't know when your next HOA meeting is, Ruth, but, this would.
Brady has told me I have a clamp on my lips
So, yeah,
tonight.
I don't know when the HOA meeting is next, and, this would probably be a special meeting for them anyway. But perhaps by the next public utilities meeting, Eric, we might be able to have the drawing showing.
You have it already?
Excellent. So at the next public utilities meeting, we'll review the engineer's drawing.
Okay.
And then we'll invite Pawpaw to have some kind of vote expressing interest in the sale of the property. And then if they are so inclined, then of course, ultimately, it will be up to council to decide.
Mark, what would the cost be and the frequency if the village were to have to dredge that silt pond regularly?
I think, Pawpaw spent 50 grand dredging the silt pond this last time. And they had, about 8 years had passed since the last one. So the pond is almost, I don't know if it's almost done, but they're definitely making progress in the dredging. And my recollection is that when it was built, it was 10 feet deep. And of course, now it's like half an inch deep. So if I had to guess, I would say that it has to be dredged probably every 10 years after it's been cleaned out. The engineer is shaking his head, I'll go with whatever you say.
If I could jump in just for a second, I think Pawpaw has kind of waited a little long to dredge that primary retention area. Worst case scenario, I would plan on, if the village owned it and was saddled with the maintenance responsibilities thereof, we should plan on once every 5 years, at least taking a good look at it and possibly doing some work. Will it be the full, $50,000? Perhaps, perhaps not. But if they're at $50,000 and it's been, and the recurrence period since the last dredging is 8 years or going on 8 years, that kind of sets your cost per year at maybe around $10,000.
My thought would be we monitor it yearly, and then when it meets a certain.
Right, when it's 50% full or
Yeah, so
whatever.
we're not doing the full big dredge that Pawpaws had to do the last 2 times. That's kind of what I'm thinking here. We monitor it, dredge it when it reaches a certain point on maybe a 5-year period. So to answer your question, 50 grand every 5 years plus inflation.
So I'm Joe taxpayer sitting out watching on YouTube right now, and I wonder, hey, my neighbor has a silt pond too. We have to dredge it. Can the village take that too? How do we approach that then?
We would have to evaluate their silt pond, and perhaps Lake Louise is one of them. But it is a retention pond, as I recall there.
Lake Louise is not a retention pond, and neither is Pawpaw.
Okay.
They both have silt ponds upstream of the big lake,
Yeah.
and neither of the lakes is a retention structure.
You know, Eric, one of the things, when I reviewed the 26 April meeting minutes, one of the residents, Mr. Hobber, indicated that, the dredge material, it costs money to take it off site. So that they elected to say, we're just gonna grade it into our existing property. Now, there's a lot of questions with this proposal, okay? Including, is our purchase price going to include property that we can take the dredge material and spread it out in an area?
And you can't do that indefinitely.
And are we going to be expected then to, because we don't own that property, are we going to be expected to haul it off site? There are EPA issues with respect to dredge material. And if you look at, Lake Erie or other bodies of water, fresh waters, there are often heavy metals and other items that are in dredge material that preclude it from being accepted by anybody. So in terms of legality, in terms of engineering practice, I'd like to, and from the outside, and again, I'm not trying to say no to this project. I'm trying to honor the essence of what's being requested. And I'm not attempting to reposition any of the community's concern. But, in my opinion, and I'll ask for some professional opinions from you and the solicitor, I'd like to see if we could find a compromise between maintaining, silt ponds in perpetuity and doing nothing at all. Okay, now one of the things that they have expressed concerns about, the residents of Pawpaw, is that they're accepting all this water from surrounding areas, okay? Perhaps instead of just clamping on this solution as the only solution, do we have an obligation to explore upriver, for lack of a better word, issues and see if there are other measures that we can take to mitigate some of the issues that they're experiencing there, and exploring that larger issue of stormwater that might be adding to this, mitigate that instead of just buying property and maintaining it forever. So I'd like your professional opinion about this proposal and, and my limited knowledge, silt ponds are not associated with every pond. They are associated there as, the pond silts up before the lake does. And if properly maintained, you shouldn't have an issue, but they're kind of like the sacrificial anode that is sacrificed to maintain a proper lake. So, obviously the people who designed Pawpaw Lake realized they're in low-lying land. There might be an issue with salting up the swim lake, so we'll build this to mitigate those circumstances, realizing that it would require dredging every so often. But can you express, from sound engineering perspective, this plan has merit or not?
Sure. I will start off by saying that the migration of silt down the watercourse is a natural process. You may not like it, but it happens. And in the method that silt migrates down a natural watercourse is Silt is picked up in suspension when you have flowing water, and then when that flowing water reaches an area where it loses its energy because there's a big piece of standing water there, such as a pond or a lake, or a much bigger, slower moving river like the Mississippi River Delta as it spills out, deposits all that silt. So there's two actions. Silt goes up into the water, into the moving water, and stays suspended. When the water slows down sufficiently due to an outside force, it falls out and deposits. And that's exactly what's happening with Sugar Bush. It's exactly what's happening with Paw Paw Lake. It's exactly what's happening with the silt pond that Lake Louise has, where you've got flowing water moving in a natural water course, picking up silt and soil particles, and then it hits the silt pond, which is stagnant, for lack of a better word, slower moving, much slower moving, and the energy is dissipated out of the moving water, the silt falls out of suspension and deposits itself there. To date, the village has undertaken a pretty actually wide and impressive variety of stormwater projects. All of them to date, with perhaps the exception of the small 319 grant project just south of Village Hall, had a large component for stormwater quantity management. In some cases, i.e. the bigger 319 grant project at Manor we were able to get that funding because it also dealt with stormwater quality and habitat creation and any number of things like that. But there's a big stormwater quantity advantage or benefit that we get from that as well. And from an engineering standpoint, I like the toads and the lizards and the snakes and the snails. But I'm more concerned with people's property flooding and having big, huge quantities of water just unabated flowing down the stream that are causing much problems. So I stick to my realm of stormwater quantity management with a stormwater project. Taking on, assuming responsibility, ownership, maintenance, or a combination thereof, of a silt pond, doesn't have a stormwater quantity benefit associated with it. It's strictly a water quality improvement for areas downstream of that siltation basin, silt pond. So it would be unique to the village to take on ownership or maintenance responsibilities, i.e., a project for stormwater that doesn't have a stormwater quantity benefit associated with it. I would probably dance all around your direct question. Can you give me a little bit more guidance as to?
Well, you've touched on it with respect to, is this stormwater related? Yeah, from the perspective of being the low point, obviously anything that comes from the high ground to the low ground is transmitted through stormwater. So I get that, but I'm trying to solicit what the impact might be besides we take on the responsibilities of this private property as part of a village responsibility to just clean the silt pond. And I think to Chris's point, are we going to then, take on silt pond responsibilities for every community that has a silt pond? How can we say yes to one and no to other? And are we prepared for that course of action? The other side of it is that, from a recent development with the Jug County Auditor's Office, this seems like it would be ideally suited for an ESID project, much like we did at the dam, Parkwood Dam, where the community members, all get together and through negotiations through the county's good graces, a good quality contractor is found in order to address these issues from time to time. So that seems like an ideal potential solution. Now, the community may not be in favor of that, but, other communities have try to appeal to the village for, let's just bankroll this particular project, but they were directed to the ESID. So you also have that aspect of the impact on this community. How about the other communities that are increasing their taxes to fix a problem within their community? You know, do we go back and now provide them money? The other aspect is, you know, sometime I hope that the solicitor might be able to address the legal aspects of this particular commitment. And again, I think there are some that go beyond, would we be allowed to dump the dredge material on the adjacent property like they are doing right now? Do we obtain that property? How much do we anticipate we're able to put there? But, you know, if we're going to take this on forever, there are some forever questions that are not adequately addressed right now. So,
Okay, we got a good start to start thinking this out. Solicitor, did you want to say something? No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump.
No, that's okay. I mean, there are, I think, legal, you know, implications to purchasing this property, obtaining an easement, whatever, however we assume the maintenance of the silt pond. I think that should definitely be considered. You know, maybe the ESID is not, I guess, an interesting idea, I guess, for the residents maybe of Paw Paw Lake, because again, that would be an assessment. But to me, this sounds very similar to the situation at Parkland Dam. If I understand correctly, this really will not affect the infrastructure of South Russell Village. It will really affect Paw Paw Lake and the actual swim lake and their residents. So I think that you are opening the door for sure to other requests. I think there's no question there. Is it precedent setting? Yes, it is. You know, but again, for the legalities of it, I think just in general, the lot split itself, there will have to be a split, because as I recall, we did not want to purchase also the lake, the land behind the lake, or the road, which is part of that parcel. Which is interesting. If you look at that, how it's actually, how that parcel is actually designed. It's almost 44 acres. So the lot split, that would require some, you know, that would require planning commission approval. It definitely would require tax map, surveying, that sort of thing. You know, Eric's he has proposed like an area, if you will. The other question is, you know, and by the way, I did speak with Dave Hosevar. Since the platted subdivision, obviously Paw Paw predates zoning, there are no green space requirements, as I understand it. I have no idea if there are, you know, if there's a declaration. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if the bylaws have been amended since then, but that would be something that the, you know, Paw Paw Lake home, you know, company would have to look into, of course. So, and of course there'd be a vote, obviously. I would think of however many percentage would need to do this, but, you know, what if the village gets off of the schedule of cleaning it out and just fails to do it? What's the liability then with respect to the Paw Paw Lake for swimming purposes and the effect of that? What if we are tying, you know, future councils down the road with respect to this maintenance? And this is a pretty aggressive maintenance schedule, if I heard correctly. Yes, it might not be the $50,000 every 5 years, but it certainly is. It looks like something's going to have to happen every 5 years.
There's some ideas on that too.
It's just something to consider. And again, we have the ESID. The ESID is, you know, something that has been set up for very specific projects. And I don't know, I think that's going to be some of the issue. Is going to be the precedent that's being set.
So there's no doubt the village can do this. The wisdom of doing it is that issue, right?
well, I don't even know if it's the can part at this stage of the game with the information that we have. Right now, we have a proposal, but it hasn't really been fleshed out very well.
Well, we can certainly buy the property from them if it's offered.
You certainly can buy the property. It's a question of splitting it, right?
Yes, and then we have to go through a lot of steps to separate it so that it's split from Paw Paw, the lake itself, and go from there. We can buy the property. The question to me is, should we?
Right.
And secondarily, or maybe primarily, is Paw Paw willing to sell it? And
Well-
lose control forever?
And that's a good question, and I wonder, we're going to invest a lot of engineering costs and potentially legal costs without even knowing, do they have a majority at Paw Paw Lake, the HOA members, that would even consider a sale?
So I don't know that we would know that until the night of the vote. I don't think there's any way to know that until the night of the vote, if there is a vote. And if there is no vote and no interest, we drop it, and then perhaps we suggest they do the ESID.
Well, and, you know, all I'm suggesting is perhaps the residents should take that vote before we invest a lot of time and effort, money, into exploring this particular project, to even know if they're amenable.
That's why we have a drawing from the engineer to consider the next public utilities, and we'll go from there. Because I don't think we should invest a lot of legal and engineering time until we know if there's actual desire to do this.
Okay, Friday, June the 2nd, 9 o'clock, Village Hall was continued. Before we move on, two things, both of them I forgot. Hopefully, there will be a burn by the Geauga County Park System. We may get a day or two notice, and simply what we want to do this year is go and watch it to see what they do. But it's been recommended by all sorts of people that we do a burn on our park because it's full of weeds. And the next thing, pardon me, this is the Pawpaw Lake. And right here, this is Silver Springs. And I want to show you, we talked about people that have water flowing onto their property. This is a house that's on the the east side of Pawpaw Drive. The water flows down onto them from Silver Springs right here. And this is what they had to do because the water, as we all know, water comes downhill. And they've actually kind of built this little stone walkway to catch that water and try to keep it off most of their property. They divert it over to here, and then this flows down to their ditch. But again, people that live, if somebody's living up above you, their water's going to come to you. And this is what this particular resident did at Pawpaw Lake. All right, we are now, Chris Bell, you're back up. We only have one ordinance, and this concerns the alternates to the planning commission.
Okay, introduce an ordinance amending section 260.02B of the codified ordinances of the Village of South Russell by providing for the appointment of up to 3 alternate members of the planning commission and declaring an emergency. First reading.
We need a second.
I'll second.
No, it's just a
First reading, okay. We're now at the bills list. Mr. Berger, can you do this one?
Yes, motion to ratify the bills list of April 28, 2023 in the amount of $28,451.37.
The second. Moved and seconded, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are new other.
Canton.
Nothing.
Kavanaugh.
Nothing.
Kalicki.
None.
Porter.
Just one thing, Street Commissioner, when are we planning on putting the trees in for the Vanderbilt Phase 1 project?
Do we have the money? I can get it priced out and see what it costs.
Yeah, we have the funding.
Okay. 6 foot?
Yeah. And that's for the notch and for the other ones.
Yeah, 3 6 foot.
I guess the question is this a good time to plant?
Sure.
Thank you.
None.
Berger.
None.
That's everybody.
Before we have a move to adopt, adjournment, if you guys have questions, we're here for a few minutes. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Moved at 8:56 by Kavanaugh, seconded by
Second.
Canton and Porter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Yeah, that's me.
I thought it was great.